Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to be talking about the grains food group, and I have got a variety of grains to share with you. We'll talk about what foods are included in the grains food group, how many ounce equivalents of grains you need each day, and then nutrients in grains. Foods in the grains group are anything made with a grain. So made with things like wheat or oats or corn or rye or barley or quinoa or millet. There are so many grains out there. So any food made with a grain is in the grain group. And we have what are called whole grains and refined grains. Whole grains are the whole grain, where a refined grain has had pieces of the grain removed from it, it's refined, and then different nutrients are added back to that. Let me give you some examples of foods that are whole grains. Some are very easy to spot. So for example, this is a box of pasta and it says right on it, it is whole grain pasta. When you're looking for whole grain, you want to turn over to the nutrition facts on the whole grain, look at the ingredient list, and I can see that the first ingredient, or basically the only ingredient in this, is whole wheat durum flour. So this is a 100% whole grain. So examples of whole grains, anything made with whole wheat, like the whole wheat pasta. I've got some whole wheat crackers, some whole wheat cereal. Those are wheat options. But we also have things like oats. You can have old-fashioned rolled oats, or even the quick oats are a whole grain, as well as steel cut oats. Those are a whole grain. Some fun ones are popcorn. A lot of people don't realize that popcorn is a whole grain, so you can pop yourself up some popcorn. One thing to watch when you're selecting popcorn is if you get the microwave based popcorn, sometimes it has things added to it. So for example, this is a kettle corn, and because it's a kettle corn, I would expect it to have some things added to it. It's got a little sugar and a little oil added to it. When you've got this popcorn here, you get to choose how much oil you add to it when you pop it. Another thing that is a whole grain is brown rice. That is a whole grain, as well as like a corn tortilla, because it's made with the whole corn with that. So you want to look on the label. So for example, I've got this bread right here, and I look on this label and it says multi-grain. Well, I don't really know, is that a whole grain? But if you turn it over and you look at the ingredient list, if I look at this ingredient list, the first ingredient is whole wheat flour. Then it has water, and then it lists whole grains, wheats, oats, rye, barley, corn, millet, triticale, bulgur wheat, buckwheat, quinoa, amaranth, and sorghum. So this is a whole grain, but I had to flip it over and look at an ingredient list. Now, let's talk about refined grains. So refined grains, probably the one that people think about the most is white bread. So it is made with wheat, but the wheat has been refined. And if I flip it over and look at the nutrition facts label, and I look at the ingredient list, it will say enriched wheat flour. That is a cue when you see the word enriched that this is going to be a refined grain. Because when we refine grains in the US, that removes some of the nutrients, and then we add a number of nutrients back into the product to enrich it. And in some cases, we actually add more nutrients than were there in the first place. Other examples of refined grains are pasta, just have some noodles and spaghetti, white rice. All right, let's talk about how much do you actually need in a day. When we look at grains, we measure it in ounces. If you have one slice of bread, so if I have one slice of this white bread, that's roughly 1 ounce of grain. If I poured a cup of cold cereal, 1 cup of cold cereal is equal to 1 ounce of grain. If I cooked up the oatmeal, and with oatmeal, cooked cereal, cooked pasta, so if I cooked the spaghetti or I had cooked rice, so I'm talking about the cooked state, 1/2 cooked is equal to 1 ounce of grain. So let's just review that. 1 slice of bread is roughly 1 ounce of grain. 1 cup of cold cereal is 1 ounce of grain. And if I have a cooked rice, pasta, or cereal, 1/2 cup cooked is equivalent to 1 ounce of grain. Now, you usually don't go around weighing things, but I'm just going to give you an example. Like a bagel will weigh between 4 and 6 ounces. So that is equivalent to consuming 4 to 6 ounces of grain. You need anywhere between 3 and 10 ounces of grains a day. So if you need a lower amount of calories, you're down on the 3 ounce end. If you need a higher amount of calories, you're up on the 10 ounce end. You want to choose or make half of your grains whole. Let's talk about the nutrients in whole grains. Or in grains, sorry, I said whole grains. You will have more fiber in a whole grain than you will in a refined grain. So I'm going back to this white bread. If I look on the label on this white bread, it only has 1 gram of fiber in a slice of bread. If I look on the nutrition facts label on my whole grain bread, I get 4 grams of fiber in 1 slice of bread. So you can see that fiber, there's a big difference. So fiber, we do find it in grains, but you get a lot more in a whole grain. Other nutrients we find in the grain group, B vitamins, such as thiamin, riboflavin, niacin, and folate. And we actually add more B vitamins back to our refined grains. So you'll find a little bit more B vitamins in a refined grain than in a whole grain. And then we find minerals, iron, magnesium, and selenium. We get more magnesium in our whole grains, and we do add some iron to our refined grains. Let's just do a little recap of this. So with the grain group, we have both whole grains and refined grains. You want half of your grains to be whole, and the rest can be refined. You can also do more than half of whole, but at least half should be whole. We measure the amount in ounce equivalent. What would equate to weighing 1 ounce? So a slice of bread is an ounce. A cup of cold cereal is an ounce. A half a cup of cooked pasta, rice, or cereal is an ounce. And then we have a lot of nutrients in our grains. Fiber, we have more of that in whole grains, a very small amount, limited amount in our refined grains. B vitamins, a little more B vitamin in the refined grain. And then we have some minerals such as iron, magnesium, and selenium. And we add a little more iron into our refined grains.